You guys just walking, right? What's your team name? Opening up.
Nou Rizk.
Hi. What's your team name?
Oh, sorry.
Just tell me.
NOU RIZK.
NOU.
Space RIZK. Sorry.
Cool. That's fine. Okay, welcome to round one of Bar Open 2017. And I'm the chairman as well. If I'm not wrong, feedback is submitted online, so please do that. In government, we have IIUM. Speaking first is Nigeria, speaking second is Nigeria. Opening opposition, Nou Rizk. Speaking first is Rizk, speaking second is Nou Rizk. Closing government, IIUM. Speaking first, Gamari. Speaking second, Rizky. And in closing opposition, putting my foot down, speaking first, speaking second, BSC. On the motion that the European Union should provide a means by which Catalonia can legally secede from Spain, the Prime Minister.
Here. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. For far too long, people injustice. The Catalonian people, Catalonia itself, has always been seen as a resistance, their own language, having their own identity, and having their own culture, and not being able to be recognized. They're also being probably one of the most wealthiest areas within Spain. However, they've been robbed of it. We think it's time for EU to step in and make a change and give them the succession that they need. Two things I'm going to talk about in my speech. Number one, I'm going to talk about the principal justification and why EU should do this. And number two, I'm going to talk about why this is good, particularly towards the Catalonian people and also towards the EU itself. But before this, let's put this aside and clear this up, right? So what do we actually mean by establishing certain means? We think by EU establishing certain means, it means that the EU legalizing or recognizing Catalonia as its own state. So this looks like giving them statehood. Or this also looks like them having their courts being able to press charges. This also looks like EU allowing some form of transitional EU duties. So how does this look like? For example, where EU has certain duties or certain standards that certain countries have to fulfill in order to become members of the EU, we still think that those duties should also apply to Catalonia. And we think also, knowing that Catalonia is also a new state, we think that EU will also have to assist and also understand that EU is somewhat new and probably will take some time to reach towards those certain duties anyway. And we also think that understand that Catalonia has already had some forms of structures before, right? I mean, that it's not like a really grassroots country or grassroots state. We think that it's already had some form of structure, it already has an identity. For God's sake, it's probably one of the wealthiest areas. So we think that it already has some form of structure, and we just think that EU should just come in and assist in certain things. And to the extent, right, we also even think that EU should assist in, even if they wanted to, we'll have another referendum for EU to make it legal, so now more people could actually go in and have more voter turnout. So thank you, Sita. So two things I want to talk about today. So the first thing, the principal justification. We think this is principally justified because EU is in line with respect to its foreign democracy, right? We think that EU has always been championing the idea of democracy and championing the idea of having independent state, like countries, I think, like having sovereign independency over their own state, right? So we think that after this referendum has been planned for a long time, and this discussion has already existed for quite a long time, right? So it's not something that suddenly existed and suddenly people had to, people suddenly came up and wanted to vote for it. We think that this discussion has happened for so long, and the fact of the matter that Spain has come and fear-mongered like the areas of Catalonia, and still voter turnout, still people were still showing up to vote. We think that this shows how intense or how severe these things are, right? We think that therefore, it's just in line with the idea of allowing Catalonia as independent people to have their own independent state. And we also think just because the voter turnout was only 42%, understand that just like any other election, that sometimes people don't turn out for votes anyway. We still shouldn't be votes being legit. 42% out of that should be acknowledged. Understand that the fact of the matter that because Spain was fear-mongering from the first place, lots of people probably didn't even want to go out and vote, right? Lots of people were even scared to vote because probably they do agree that they wanted independence, but they couldn't, right? Because they know that like probably it's illegal, they probably get captured. So the fact that there was already 42% shows a lot of people who are actually wanting this succession. And understand that if we do instill like a new, referendum, probably the voter turnout will come up even more before that, yes.
Yeah, so the reason why 67% of the population in Catalonia didn't go was because the referendum was declared as unconstitutional. So a vast majority of people didn't want to break the law to begin with, and a lot of them who didn't want to break the law were doing it only because they thought that it was unnecessary to secede by any
No,
measure.
like we don't know that. I think it's unlikely. The fact that because it was illegal, this is why people don't want to go out. The fact that people actually broke the laws or was brave enough to go out and vote, that shows how intense or how like serious these people are in wanting the secession from Spain, right? So second, why this is particularly good. So first, let's talk about Catalonian people, right? I think Spain has already known for a long, long time that Catalonia has always been seen as a regime, right? The idea that Catalonia had already had its own parliament, Catalonia had its own prime minister and had their own courts that functioned within themselves, right? They always been seen that Catalonia is like a distant state between Spain. So this happens, there's like questionable dynamics of how things work within the Spain government, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't know like the amount of representation Catalonia gets within the Spanish government, and like economically, the fact that Catalonia is making a lot of money, but the fact that all its money or all its wealth is coming from Catalonia is being redistributed to poor areas, possibly harmful. Spain, they still have to fork out, I don't know, like fork out the kind of money that they make into other areas. We think it's particularly harmful for them. So at least what we do now is that once EU is able to step in and show the fact that, guys, these are two independent states, now these countries can finally, now Catalonia can finally run its own independent state and actually make money for themselves and not have to distribute to other people. We also think it's particularly good because now, before this, people like FBI was actually reducing because people were worried of the turmoil that happened within Spain and Catalonia. We think that right now, when EU can step in and prove that there is independence between those two states, the more confident FBIs will be, and it will just prosper even more. No, thank you, sit down. But B, why is this particularly good for EU? We think that EU it shows how it respects sovereignty of certain states, right? So even smaller states, because we feel that we understand that this sounds a bit like. Okay, how do I explain this? So basically, like EU, we have a lot of countries in EU, right? The bigger countries and smaller countries. So even though it comes at the expense of Spain, because it seems like, oh, you're disrespecting a smaller state of Catalonia, but not respecting Spain. We also think that shows how EU actually acknowledges that there are smaller states within EU, and we all have to respect those as well. But we also think that it shows how EU isn't going to take particular sides within EU, right? Because all these multiple or like the Euroscepticism that exists within EU is that smaller states want to go out because smaller states think that EU always sides within like the larger countries, or sides within the countries that makes the most money, or sides with the countries that give more influence, or is more recognized. So this is why Euroscepticism actually exists within smaller countries. Once we show that we actually care for smaller countries to provide the independence towards them, this at least reduces the Euroscepticism or the idea that favoritism within this. So it demolishes that idea, right? But secondly, most importantly, right? So like So probably people might think like, bigger countries probably think it's unfair. Bigger countries would think that, like now we want to probably they'll have Euroscepticism, but we don't think that would actually materialize. Why so? Because there's, so it's only 6 minutes. But why so? It's because before this, like even if we can see how Britain tried to leave the EU, and once it even did, we think that after it left, they realized that it wasn't the really best decision for them. You can tell how currency dropped for them, and even if they're somewhat stable, even after they're established the fact that they've already left EU, they haven't actually pursued to actually showing the difference, like actually pursued into actually cutting ties with EU at the end of the day. So I think bigger countries won't actually materialize that idea of Euroscepticism. For all those reasons we speak. So we think it's better for the Catalonian government to have an independent state for the betterment of their people, and also for the betterment of members of the EU.
Thanks for that speech made by the EU of the Ombudsman people.
Next, the case then is
Mr. Speaker, let me start off what has the government state on the. Let me go straight on the aspect of fear-mongering of Spain towards Catalonia. They made it state that Spain is attempting to prevent people from voting in Catalonia because they are what type of fear-mongering? They only really stated that they are afraid to go out and vote. Just because Spain is doing something, and then we can't really see the really intensity of that, something that why Catalonians doesn't go out and vote. First of all, we can like go into YouTube and news. We can see Catalonians do parades in the streets. That people who are wanting independence, and the people there are not really afraid of of Spain as it is. But that comes into question the 43% of Catalonians not going out and vote. We want to know whether or not what they are saying is true, and then the burden on them, you have to explain more on that part. And we think that what they said is not enough. And then, in that case, after that, we believe, Catalonians are already in the first place have become autonomous region in that country in the first place. And then what is happening right now, after what they are doing, they bring that problem into themselves. They are already an autonomous region. Their money is being stripped away to go to Spain. We concede to that fact. And then that's why Catalonia wants to go out. They want to be better to defend themselves. But we have to know, in the first place, Catalonia also needs Spain to, they are a part of Spain in the first place, and we have to know that they need Spain also, and we don't really understand how after going out, they can really sustain themselves just by needing the making it another problem for the EU to settle. Instead, the EU should focus on the bigger problems that are happening in the region while focusing on these problems that are contained in Spain in the first place. First of all, in Spain, there's a lot of wars between Palestine and Syria, Palestine and Israel. And then why are the EU settling on that problem instead going to Spain and settling this type of problem that they shouldn't be done? That's my first point. I want to question the image of EU if they do this type of problem. What would people will see as what EU is doing is only doing something that they see as easy and something that shouldn't be even settled on in the first place. We want to state that the EU should not, EU should let Spain settle its own problem. Spain and Catalonia, rather than focusing what they do in that region and focus on bigger problems rather than this matter. Okay, this we want to justify by because what is happening in Catalonia and Spain, there aren't any wars. People are not like go out and with guns blazing and killing everyone. Spain doesn't do that. No bombs, no terrorist groups in Catalonia. That's not a problem. That is not happening, and we should let this type of thing contained in country. Okay, and then the urgency, there's no urgency because they already conducted a referendum, and then only 43%, and there's even Spain acknowledged those 43%. People are afraid of the fear-mongering. If everyone just go out and voted and get more than 50%, at least half, and then Spain could really consider, but they don't. Because of that matter, we believe that this is the problem is still contained inside, and they can really settle it by themselves. Yeah, you state for fear-mongering, but they still can go up, and the 43% is still acknowledged by the Spanish government. But as in acknowledge that most Catalonians don't go out and vote, and that's a problem. And why should you go in and take care of this type of problems where already 50% can go out? Okay.
Knowing that there's possibility of Spain harassing Catalonia if there's no intervention of any form of body, how would Catalonia then declare their own independence in that sense?
Okay, okay, and we also know when the EU starts to take action in this country, what is the justification that we can go towards Spain? Spain is also a country in the EU. They have to also gain the respect of Spain inside the EU also. If EU go and help Catalonians, what side does that show? Is the EU not supporting Spain, or the EU supporting Catalonia and are against the Spain as a whole country? That is not justice in both sides of the part. Okay, the government side might also say that EU is creating a means where people can go out and take another referendum and go and take another referendum just to settle this problem. EU is like helping to settle this problem. When we have to before I.
No, so your problem is that Catalonian people don't actually want independence, but the motion states that for establishing means for Catalonian people to succeed. Therefore, if we have a referendum and they want to succeed, why not?
Thank you. So there's already a referendum that they conducted in the first place, and then 43% of people only come out and vote. Okay, we understand that the Catalonians really want independence, but they have to really show it in their own sense. Okay. What we believe, what will happen when EU create a means where we are opening up a space for Catalonians to really to what they want. How are they really sure enough that the outcome will be Catalonia to gain independence? What if when the EU comes in and then the independence problem is still not settled? And then already just we believe that EU shouldn't coming into and settle this problem because we want EU to settle their image and then not budging on small problems. And then we believe that this is not enough of urgency that the EU should go in and do help this problem, take this problem. Thank you.
Thanks for that speech. I learned that you practice. So, pretty good.
I think it is unfair as the EU to come out and say that they have other issues to think about as opposed to individuals or regions that are under its governance, especially regions that are currently held at the behest of their central government. We think that in my speech, we're going to prove two things. Primarily the case that we were going on, which is firstly whether or not we think this is principally justified, and secondly why we think this is good. All of my responses are integrated in this. Firstly is this principally justified? Because I think what the leader of opposition fails to do is engage with the idea that this is a lot of what the Catalonian people want. At best, what he did was he came out and gave the presumption that you don't know what the remainder of those voters would have actually voted on. We told you the likelihood of those voters actually voting for why they would want independence. I think that if 43% voted turn out is still legitimate, I don't think they gave us any principal justifications as to why is it that the same principle that exists within elections as to say that we don't nullify any outcomes of votings just by sheer percentage of that voter turnout. Why is that in the case of Catalonia that's different? But secondly, we think at best, making a case on a speculation of what the remainder of the voter percentage would have is weak, especially when you don't give us likelihoods. Because what Oji told you was we gave you many reasons as to why it is that A, not only should we respect the 43% of people who actually did voted yes, given the fact that within the 43% turnout, 90% of them voted in favor of the independence, which means that it's a high probability of people wanting it even within a tested pool of individuals. We think that that probability is still likely to be in the majority of voting for yes, even if you have expanded the percentage of that voter turnout. But secondly, the likelihood of why people would have voted in favor is rich. They're currently paying off the debt, they're currently at the behest of Spain due to Spain's horrible decisions in deciding what their welfare allocations would actually look like. The fact that Spain was in debt, is in debt, and Catalonia is paying off that debt, saying that Catalonia is autonomous is not enough to say that Catalonia gets to escape from the debt that Spain is currently in. I think EU not helping Catalonia is pushing Catalonia to fall into the same trap as Spain. At best, it probably is the duty of EU to come in and cushion in states currently who are able to cushion themselves off of the financial turmoil of which their central governments are going through, especially when these states not only have financial capacity but have cultural identity, have a lot of wanting to self-actualize by being their own state. I think that this characterization of Catalonia is deserving of an independence. The people have voiced out in wanting that independence. It is the EU's obligation, therefore, as an institution that champions democracy and the ability to carry out that democratic system, to then grant them the ability to eventually secede. No, but thirdly, I think opposition in this debate has the burden of showing us that if they really do care about democracy, that if they really do care about what the Catalonian people want, that in the absence of the EU's assistance, Catalonian people would be able to carry out a fair referendum that would not be out of the at the mercy of the fear-mongering of the Spanish government. Because that's something that's missing within opposition's work. Because what did we tell you, the government? We told you not only were we going to give them rights and recognition in terms of statehood and legal entities, but also, if necessary, if you needed to hold another referendum into ensuring whether or not this is what the Catalonian people want, the EU can come in and give them that assistance. This debate is not just about the outcome of whether or not the Catalonian people deserve independence, but what the EU should do to ensure a sustainable means in ensuring that you get a fair secession at the end of the day. Sure.
On your side, will the EU now principally stand for every homogeneous group that wants its own country automatically deserving it?
No, I just told you what those guidelines look like. If you have the capacity, if you have carried out legal means in the eyes of the EU and not the behest of the central government, if it's clear that the central government is currently holding you at mercy for a lot of their crappy decisions, I think that these are fair guides of which the EU should do. Second question, why do you think this is good? And this falls perfectly into the idea of the image of the EU, which will directly engage with what leader of opposition said, as well as the POI that came from CEO. Because I think that if your image of EU was that you wanted them to be non-interventionist regarding offices that are mutually exclusive, but secondly, even if it was mutually exclusive, I think your primary obligation are towards your member states, right? Because if anything, the EU, if it chooses to disregard what the demands of the smaller states are, especially when they've shown capacity and especially when they've shown that they're not violent and they're showing full respect of the needs of the people and carrying out a referendum and actually caring about what their regional individuals think, if the EU chooses to ignore that, that's probably what's going to create more Euroscepticism, right? No. Which goes on to my second bit as to why this is good regarding the image of the EU. Look, the issue about Euroscepticism is that it's not just one homogenous thing and everybody having Euroscepticism due to one reason. Currently, one of the bigger reasons as to why smaller states within the EU have Euroscepticism is because they feel that every time when there is a conflict between the smaller states and the states who want secession, or even states who are currently already autonomous,
and whenever they are in conflict with the bigger states, the EU chooses to stay silent. The problem with staying neutral, staying silent, is that you only those who are in power, and those who are in power are dominant. The point at which the EU is on, with regards to Euroscepticism, the reason why bigger states are less likely to materialize any forms of Euroscepticism that they have is because they've learned their lesson from the UK. As much as the UK has managed to stabilize their currency as opposed to back then when they initially had the referendum to get out of the EU, notice that the UK hasn't actually done anything meaningful in showing that they want to leave the EU, because they realize that a lot of their financial ties and a lot of the reason why they can economically strive is due to their dependence on the EU. Therefore, we think that the EU coming in and intervening and saying that they're going to help out in the secession of Catalonia doesn't necessarily harm the EU. In fact, it further solidifies their image in showing that they care about the democratic voices of the people. But then, and last, the reason why we think that this is good for Catalonia as well as Spain is because other than the fact that Catalonia right now is rich and we don't want them to fall into the same financial trap of Spain, and also the fact that Spain is in debt, probably one of the best ways in which they can actually climb out of that debt or to actually financially stabilize is to make sure that FBI sustains. The point at which EU is absent in terms of like mediating the sort of referendum that the Catalonian people want and in separation in the secession, I think that's what FBI is. Like what's happening right now in status quo. You have a referendum, they say the referendum is illegal, people want the referendum, you don't know what's happening, but when a legitimate institution comes in and mediates that, you're more likely to get trust within FBI to stay and get flourishing of economy for Spain as well as Catalonia.
I think that the option to floor.
Mr. Speaker, the fact that over Catalonia has been facing conflicts and turmoil and has been demanding for their independence, we do not deny that Catalonians deserve the independence that they yearn. However, we believe that issues in Spain should stay in Spain because, based on three principles, because we think that EU should stay away from the conflict, and we think that that Spain should be able to settle the conflicts within their own country, and we feel that it is the Catalonians to be themselves who should be blamed in the matter that they have put themselves into. But before that, what we question in today's debate is that when you question about how when you question about the independence that what Catalonians should gain and how they're gonna reap that without having the help of EU, we feel that when they it's gonna happen when they finally show initiative within themselves, instead of just voicing dissatisfaction, instead of voicing the fact that they want independence for themselves. I feel that they should be doing something, and the fact that Catalonia already has a structure and are rich and are deemed to be one of the richest states, it means that Catalonia has their assets. When they have their assets, it means that they have something to offer. And I feel that with this, they can build some sort of diplomacy with Spain. So instead of just voicing dissatisfaction, there's something that they can actually do with what they have. And I feel that in this situation, it is Spain that needs Catalonia more than Catalonia ever needs Spain. And I don't see that, and I don't see why Catalonians should be afraid of Spain. And with these points, I feel that it is very petty that they used it for Tuesday as the referendum that did not succeed before this happened. And when the government came up in today's debate of wanting to offer another referendum to give justice towards these Catalonian people, I feel that it is totally absurd to want to
want to interfere in a sense that wanted to offer another referendum for them, because I feel that this is going to spark confusions within the citizens. It's going to interfere with the current results of the votings. Plus, what's going to happen? I feel that it's only going to lead to further disputes for the people who actually doesn't want to have another referendum. And the fact that the first referendum didn't succeed, how would you guarantee that the second referendum would actually turn out to be to achieve and to achieve what they want? So onto the point of why we think that EU should stay away from the conflict. We feel that it is not big enough of an urgency to actually let EU interfere in the conflict that's only happening, that's only contained within Spain. We feel that the intensity of the problem is not urgent. As long as it does not cost lives, a lot of lives, as long as it does not spark wars or involve other countries, and become a global issue, we believe that Spain should play its own game, and there's no need for interference. And for interference from EU and EU too, and we feel that it wouldn't even give EU much of a benefit for them to interfere in this matter. And on the point of why should EU let Spain settle their own problems, right? We feel that any sort of interference that's occurring within their own countries would not actually help as much. Would not actually help as much as it would only cause harms towards these people. Because when we have EU into the picture, it's only gonna create an interference that's not gonna help the people, because complications gonna happen, and the complications of power will happen, because there's gonna be complications of the governing country. They're not gonna know. It's gonna confuse them of the authority over their country, and in the point of independence, I don't see how you can help them in that matter, right? And yeah.
So if you agree with the choice of Catalonia and wanting independence, but you don't want me to step in, how can you then give Catalonia the independence that it actually wants?
Yeah, I've actually mentioned this about how we feel that Catalonians can actually reach independence without even having the help from the EU. We feel that because the reason why these Catalonians are not getting the independence that they want is because they haven't been having good ties with Spain. Therefore, Spain is refraining them from succeeding, right? So when this happens, we feel that the best way to cater to this without having to have any other party interfering into the picture and not having any sort of complications, it is for them to have their initiatives to actually build better ties with Spain. And with that, we feel that with the assets that they have and with the money that they have, they can actually use it to give something back to Spain or to build diplomatic ties. So instead of sort of like always having disputes with Spain, maybe it's about time for them to think about these issues and to have better ties with Spain, and maybe eventually have independence from the good ties that they have, and in a way resolve this matter within their own states, and and at the end of the day get the independence and that they want. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I'd like you to government.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ. I think it's abhorrent for side-between opposition to think the EU only needs to act when there is an existing war or insurgency crisis in Spain or in Catalonia before they interfere. We think that is wrong. Actually, we think it is the best interest of EU to act before the occurrence of such incidents and before it becomes more extreme and more driven to people into school. Right? So their whole argument of urgency does not hold the ground. But even if it's an argument of urgency, we still believe there already exists an existing tension within Spain and Catalonia, right? And it's just a matter of time before this tension translates into whatever kind of extreme scenarios they want to characterize to us. We believe that is true. And we have even seen examples from public figures such as Piqué, a Barcelona football player, publicly voicing out his dissatisfaction against the Spain government, right? We believe if it's a matter of urgency, this is one as well. Three things I will tell you in my debate. First, I'm going to tell you why legal separation is very important. It is something that is missing from opening government speeches. Secondly, I'm going to tell you why EU is the best actor into this debate. And lastly, I'll tell you why this is in the best interest of EU to begin with. So why is legal separation in this debate? Because you have to understand what would a world look like, or a separation where EU does not intervene look like. Because you have to understand the reason why we have a 40-something% of turnout voters in comparison to the 90% of individuals who are actually accredited the voting. It's an indication that there is a fear of repercussion towards them. The fear they are going to be locked up in jail, being thrown in jail, taken away, or the fear the presence of military subjugation of Spain government or the blocking of trade in this government. We believe this kind of reason for parties are what exists within this individual, which is the reason why they could not come out. I believe this is a world that will exist. If there isn't a peaceful secession between Catalonia and Spain, in which both parties have reached an agreement towards that, they will believe these are kind of words that will exist. But on comparison, if you have a legal separation, we believe it's a world in which Spain could no longer harass Catalonia, right? Instead of military presence or in terms of blockade of trade, right? No, thank you. We believe there will always exist a scrutiny against Spain if they are to harass Catalonia, and Catalonia will no longer be in the mercy of Spain any longer, right? So coming to my second argument, why do we believe EU is the best actor into this debate? Because you have to understand, like I've mentioned in the beginning of my speeches, like there already exists a tension between Spain and Catalonia, right? Between citizens of Spain and Catalonia, and there already exists a tension between Spain and Catalonia, and it's just a matter of time before this translates into act of terrorism or war or major crisis, right? So why is EU actually the best actor in this debate? Because you have to understand the matter of secession between Spain and Catalonia. If Catalonia should separate from Spain, they still need an internationally recognized body that will help them integrate more in an international community, right? Because then EU being an active actor in today's debate means their integration to the international community is more likely and more easier for Catalonia, because then they will be identified as a member of the European Union member, and they will also benefit from all the membership benefits that European Union members benefit from. I would believe this is also in the best interest of Catalonians. Before I move on, yes.
How could you confirm that after if EU helps and then Catalonia go out, there won't be any conflicts in the end after that?
Because I think that's what I started my speech. We are talking about legal separation here. And the point that we have a legal separation means both parties have reached a consensus and there is peace will exist, right? Do not believe that is true, which is more likely to exist in your own world if there is a legal separation and the tension is allowed to grow up into insurgency, right? So coming to my second argument, why is this in the best interest of the European Union? You have to understand that the whole idea of the European Union is a functioning state, or it's a functional body, because it depends on its member states, right? And if there exists a tension or its insurgency in one of the member states, means the European Union will not function properly. The economic disruption will massively harm bad, right? So this means that if the issue of Spain and Catalonia should be left alone and leaving, because like Spain is not ready to accept the referendum of the Catalonians, and Catalonians are not ready to back down. This means they reach a consensus, and individuals who feel harassed continuously by the Spain government will then feel the need of them rebelling against the Spain government. This means there will be rise of insurgency. Not prone to insurgency at large. We have insurgency groups such as ISIS and whatnot. These are kind of scenarios and these are kind of areas they are targeted towards. Right? Already we've already seen explosion in Spain of recent going off, which we literally don't know what the causes are. To school, this means the insurgency groups such as ISIS will exploit that and even take their forces towards those regions as well. Regional stability is not in the best interest of Union, but a stable community of both parties is one which European Union will must carve off our benefits from, because they have the economic benefits in which they all they have the economic benefits of both parties. Right? Mr. Speaker, we believe the European Union is a neutral body in today's debate, because like clearly they would have both member states to be a member of the European Union, and they are most likely to create a scenario or an agreement of both states reaching a consensus, and there won't be an infringement of power or authority over other states. We believe for the freedom of Catalonians, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thanks for that speech. I invite the opposition to the floor, please.
I think the government bench in this particular debate has been extremely disingenuous with the framing that it came up with. OG and CG consistently framed this debate about how the EU was going to be the somehow neutral arbiter that mediated the negotiations. This motion, Chair, assumes that there is an outcome already, which is that they are. It assumes that the EU is going to facilitate and take a side on that on this particular issue, which is to say they will, and in effect, cause that support an independence movement and then facilitate the secession. That is the burden that they need to pick up in this particular debate as the government. So in this debate, what is the realistic op that we are going to publish? What we argue with the counterfactual B is that the European Union comes in only when the other party requests or either party requests it. They can perhaps act as a neutral arbiter, which is actually our case, by the way, and they will not take sides. They will perhaps facilitate whatever negotiations that might occur. We can give Catalonia EU citizenship or membership rather, once independence is achieved, but that's another thing altogether. The priority, no thank you, should be to ensure that the Spanish government, which currently does not want to enter negotiations, actually comes to the negotiating table to de-escalate the existing civil political conflict in Catalonia. I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. First, why this necessarily sets a dangerous precedent, and second, what are the implications of it. Let's first quickly deal with the argument on the democratic deficit that came out in OG. This is what they said, that the democratic deficit in Catalonia and Spain requires intervention because the referendum showed that the Catalonians wanted it. Now this is premised on the dangerous idea that most Catalonians wanted to secede but were too afraid to turn out. Let's firstly recognize that if only 90% of the turnout voted for independence, then the effective voice isn't 43%. Mathematically, only 38.7% of Catalonians actually wanted this. So it's a bit of a stretch for them to claim that somehow this little 43% number was a bit of a tipping scale, to tip the scale and things like that. That's not even close to it. But even if we accepted the wild speculative assumption, no thank you, that if everyone turned up, they would have voted for a secession, the burden on the government bench is to prove why the EU should effectively force a secession. Don't let OG get away with this disingenuous framing by saying that this is mediation, because this debate is effectively about the EU taking a side and committing an unprecedented violation of a state member's sovereignty. I think that's the realistic burden that they need to defend, which they never did across the bench. It's a bit too late for Garfield to come up here to defend the dangerous precedent argument that's going to come up in my speech. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about the setting of a dangerous precedent. I'll indicate my responses here. Now this is what OG said. OG said that effectively they were willing to set a precedent for the European Union to grant independence to people with a common cultural identity. What does the world in their side look like? In their world, it's basically the death of multiculturalism, constructed based on in-groups which are inherently exclusive, and divisive to begin with. What is the constructive contribution that we're going to come up with in this debate coming from the CEO? We are going to say that it is unprecedented for the European Union to override the constitution of one of its member states. Notice that the referenda was declared by the Spanish government as effectively unconstitutional and was not supported by the government. This is something, the precedent that they are willing to set is likely to fuel the very Euroscepticism that we wanted to de-escalate. No, thank you. So, why is this second argument? Being threatened? Existing rhetoric of far-right nationalist parties. Recognize that, for example, in the UKIP's like best argument, rather, the most persuasive argument, perhaps, was that it was never the economic benefits of secession, right? It was driven by the nationalist desire to reclaim a degree of autonomy that was triggered off prior membership to the European Union. This violation that government then proposes confirms these perceptions, which is what actually threatens the overall strategic interest. Notice that if they want to discharge their duties as the European Union, or whatever duties that it has, or whatever strategic interests that it has, it must be able to first ensure that people don't perceive their political and economic bloc as something that is disintegrated. Under their side of the house, but any form of uncertainty that they wanted to push on us in terms of whatever that was going to happen through protracted negotiation and protection of framework, all of that is uncertainty that's very marginal compared to the uncertainty that they would have under their side of the house, because they European Union is seen as this integrated market.
Spain needs Catalonia's money, and Spain called the referendum unconstitutional. But the initial stance was EU will remain neutral and only help with Catalonia's money. So anyone willing to engage with keep it according to your views.
That's the point is, when I come back to so in their words, what happens is that the European Union is actually set on fire with financial sentiments, and they can't strategically discharge any of their governments. This is why the government benches is far more likely to harm European Union citizens. If they want to talk about democratic precedents and things like that, the only way for you to get effective democratic precedent of authority would be for you to actually have some degree of legitimacy. The point at which Ethiopia and Serbia for separation. That's the reason why there was talks. The reason why there were talks. Even like Hungary, French, and the French leaving the European Union bloc after Brexit. Everyone is afraid of that because of the uncertainty because of the precedent that the UK took in the very first place. We don't want a domino effect to suddenly spread across the European continent. That contagion that they wanted to support was something that was likely to destabilize the European Union. So as a whole, the European Union would be paralyzed in their world because it cannot strategically discharge its duties to its maximum, to its optimum level. For all these reasons, we're very proud to oppose.
Thanks for that EU will go to the floor.
Understand this, right? Catalonia, or Catalonians in general, are afraid of the repercussion that would happen upon them if they go out and vote. They are afraid that something would happen to them because the Spain government necessarily want them to still be in Spain. And we see that Spain would have all the incentive to make sure that Catalonia stays in Spain, in which we think that there's more reason for them not to go out, in which we think that the point in which you give them the ability to go out and tell them what they really want for the Catalonia and Catalonia itself, we think that there's more of a pressure to them actualize than separating from Spain. We think on this side opposition, they are not able to see on why this is necessarily important for the Catalonians, and we don't necessarily think that they actually analyze why EU is the best mediator in helping them separating from Spain itself. Right? But before I move on to my issues, let's just settle, clear up certain questions. Right? Will this diplomatic pressure come in? And will EU necessarily succumb to this diplomatic pressure? We think necessarily EU wouldn't why? There's already a reason for them not to acknowledge the kind of the kind of referendum that they have using the constitution as a defense, saying that this is not legit because this is against the constitution. Because that factor people are afraid to come out and vote. Second thing, right, we think that in this particular issue, it makes Euroscepticism worse because you feel that this is the reason why you make EU, there's more of a reason to not trust EU in that sense, because now EU can never be any form of mediator, and we think that because EU now is siding with people in power who are oppressive to certain in and help the states. Now, we think that people not are able to actualize that EU can do something to have autonomous region, to have certain regions to freedom somehow. Right? Second thing, third thing, right? Would EU necessarily with this idea of creating better ties and helping Catalonia separating with Spain, right? Because they coming up under the precedent now if you do nice stuff. So Spain will necessarily help you succeed from. We don't think so because there's a more of a reason why EU want Catalonia to stay in Spain because of the kind of benefit that Catalonia has been giving, and specific benefit. Because the more because Catalonia has been giving a lot of benefits, there's more reason for them not to let go of Spain, let go of Catalonia in that sense. Sit down. Now we're going on to the two issues that I have today. First, I'll talk about how EU is the best body in providing help to Catalonia to secede from Spain. And second, I'll talk about how political stability within the European region is the best thing that EU wants for the moment. Understand that the best body to Catalonia to succeed, EU is the best body to help Catalonia because necessarily, principally justified by OG, they've talked about how the establishment of Catalonia as a for sovereign state is really necessarily important because you want their culture, you want the language and unique identity to be recognized at its center. Because we think that here's where we tell you why EU's help is necessary, because we want to make sure that the help given can facilitate them to create a better form of governmental system, because considering that already have a proper functioning system in the state. We also think that there's more of a reason for EU to come and intervene, because knowing that Catalonia is a state without military power, the point in which you bring in EU, it's more of a reason for EU to protect, there's more of a reason for Catalonia to protect themselves from the harassment that will be given by the Spain government. Because understand that there's always going to be a point in time in which the Spain will continually harass Catalonia. Why? Because Spain will necessarily use this use the narrative of because they don't think the referendum referendum of anything that they're doing is constitutional, they're necessarily taking people and like lock them in jails and do like drop bombs in like certain places in Catalonia. Stuff like that would necessarily be very rampant because they want to protect, or they were necessarily under the idea of protection of Catalonia from seceding Spain. Because like even if like Catalonia is able to become a state without the help of EU, what would it look like? Spain, in order to like retaliate back to the kind of decision that they make, will necessarily block trade, will like cut off ties immediately, continually harass Catalonia in forms of like telling their allies or sanctioning their allies if they have some form of relationship with Catalonia. We think this is where interference is necessary, because the point in which interference exists is the point in which the Spain can tell Spain not to harass Catalonia and can like give more scrutiny to Spain to not do anything that affect the Catalonia in general. So we think that it's necessarily a form of importance in the interference in the sense. Having seen both of you. Now moving on to like the second issue, why is the political stability is something that is necessary for you? Because I understand that tension already exists, right? Circumstances of war is just 5 fingers away. In the point in which harassment still continues, this is what would spark the interest of people going against the harasser, going against Spain. These are the instances where they would add fuel to the kind of aggression that's already happened on the ground. This would also necessarily mean that there will be individuals using that particular narrative and to say that, like, look, we have to go against Spain because they are harassing us. Therefore, we need to like set up our own body to protect ourselves. It means in that sense, aggression would necessarily happen. More wars, the region would be less stable. And how does this affect EU in general, or like the region in general, right? Because this is the sense in which that people don't find that region is a safe region to go in. People won't necessarily go to Catalonia, like in that particular region. This should necessarily harm the EU's economy, right? Because we have to understand that it's the best interest of the EU to make sure that their region are economically and politically stable. The point in which, when it's not, is the point in which they lose out on a lot of economical benefits around the region. And we think this is not what EU necessarily wants at the end of the day. We think first, we have proven why EU has the incentive to step in and to make sure that the political stability in the region exists. And second, we think that the point in which even if they are able to create a state on their own, harassment will still continue and nothing will change. We think it's really important to acknowledge that Catalonia itself wants to secede from Spain and how important of them establishing their unique identity. We also have to acknowledge the importance of them not being able to protect themselves from the central government, and we have to understand that the only way to make sure that everything goes smoothly and they're being able to celebrate their ability to become an autonomous state is when the EU comes in and provide them the necessary help. We think at least under our side, we are able to help the nation to prosper even better, and we think at that point of time, the EU would have more of an incentive to call themselves EU because they are somehow considered.
Thanks for that speech. I bet you all here.
I quote member of government when he says a good separation is one where there is consensus between Spain. If this is true, the EU actively stepping in and saying we support the Catalonians and not the Spanish government, we think that Catalonians wanting independence, that is directly contradictory to that consensus gaining claim and the ability to be neutral on this matter. We think it's significantly more important for the EU to not take a side on this issue because it's important to get the Spanish government on board in this negotiation as opposed to deciding that one side is right and not taking the side of the other party in this debate. We're going to do two things in this speech. One, is this necessary and will this work? We don't think they have taken on the burden of proving or achieve that burden of proving that this policy is necessary and that it will work. But secondly, and more importantly, we're going to talk about what's best for the EU and why closing government's lack of response to the extension from closing opposition will cost them in this debate. So let's start with, is this necessary and will this work? They say in government bench that Catalonia deserves secession because one, they want it, and two, because Spain is a financial leech on them. The consequence of both of these things is that the EU should now set a precedent of overriding member states' constitutions and overriding its member states' sovereignty because of these two reasons. We have no reason why those two things are connected in any way. We don't see why the EU decides for itself that the members' or constitutions or the members' decisions within their own countries don't matter just because of these two reasons. But let's look more specifically at government solution, right? Their solution is another referendum. Let's have another referendum so that people can vote on this and this will be solved. Because the first one had fear-mongering by the Spanish government and that's a problem. We see no reason why there will be less fear-mongering in this second referendum. The EU, just because the EU is conducting it, doesn't automatically mean that the fear-mongering suddenly disappears. Especially considering their own rhetoric that the EU has very little power over the Spanish government, diplomatic pressure is not going to happen because there is no possibility for the EU to change anything of this, any of the Spanish government's mind. If that is true, then this concept of Spain continuously harassing Catalonia is going to exist in the second referendum as well. We don't think the EU telling them to stop is supposedly going to change anything if they also think diplomatic pressure isn't going to work. So we don't see why there's going to be less fear-mongering on that side. We think the consequence is that the result is probably going to be similar to what has already existed. The Spanish government is still going to be upset, Spanish leaders are still going to call it unconstitutional, it's still going to be illegal, the Spanish courts are still not going to allow for the referendum to pass through. So this supposed claim that there is a legal means that they can establish for this to happen isn't going to happen on that side. But even if there is no fear-mongering, we don't see any method that they have proven as to how the EU is going to make the Spanish government come on board to this referendum and agree to allowing for the separation to happen. So what is better? We told you it's significantly better in opposition when the EU doesn't take a stance. When the EU chooses to actively stay out of taking a side on this issue and saying, we are going to be the neutral arbiter between the two governments. We are going to sit at the table, bring the Spanish government and the Catalonian leaders to the table and come to a consensus with this matter. It might not be legal secession. It might not be independence for the Catalonian government. It might be some sort of compromise where there's a better financial deal where Spain doesn't leech off the resources of Catalonia as much. It might be more autonomy and more independence for the people of the region, but some federal control by the Spanish government. It might be some cultural leeway so that the people of Catalonia achieve more independence or more ability to protect their culture. These are compromises and negotiations that can happen with the EU as a neutral arbiter, as opposed to the EU deciding that the Catalonians deserve independence on the front. CG saying the EU can't apply diplomatic pressure on the Spain government makes absolutely no sense, considering their policy requires the EU to have some power over the Spanish government for that to work. We think the same political will that exists on their side is the same political will we use on our side to achieve our end goal. But let's now go into the more important part of this debate. What's best for the EU? We told you, Joel, that setting a dangerous precedent is a problem. Because what you set up now is this suggestion that the EU can step in and solve local problems regardless of what the local government says. We think that fuels the Euroscepticism that exists now, where sovereignty is no longer something that these countries hold on to because this higher body can just come in and say what you say about your own government doesn't exist. That increases the nationalist rhetoric that already exists in Spain, yet alone in many of the other countries in Europe. The outcomes are probably two things. One, that significantly worse integration because you have the increase another is going to be reduced because these countries now become more nationalistic and more protective of their own laws and their own sovereignty. That means the European ability to have any integrated policies are probably going to be reduced. But two, you also set a precedent that multiculturalism is now less important than personal preferences of certain groups of their communities. We think that's bad, especially considering that the Europe project was about integration of all of these people under a larger banner, and that kind of separation of individual groups of people purely because they think they deserve it is going to hurt the kind of stance that they want to achieve, and that's a bad precedent. Before we go on, sure.
Your alternative of compromises and consensus sounds really nice, but can you tell us how this is possible without EU intervention? Because despite money, Catalonia is still under the rule of governance of the central government of Spain.
Yes, so we think that any sort of control the Spanish government has now over Catalonia also consists on the ability to get your legal separation from Spain and the Spanish government requires the EU to allow for some Spanish compromise, allow for Spanish government to gain something out of it as well. The only way that is possible is for the EU to allow for the Spanish government, the Catalonian government, to have some negotiation and mediation. opportunity to allow for democracy to flourish. One, we think that also the democratic will of the Spanish people that you have to consider, and then considering Spain is the member state of the EU and not Catalonia, it's probably significantly more important to care about the Spanish democratic will than it is about the Catalonian democratic will, since that is the one that's actually the EU member. We think it's not that democratically important to care about one section of your member as opposed to the larger part of your member state. But secondly, we say that also the side that poo-pooed on referendums, right? Because they are also the side that said the UK voting on Brexit was something that they regretted later, and that the referendum probably was inaccurate. Justified. So the truth. We think if you want political stability on that side, we concede it's important. But this debate is proving that your method of political stability would actually happen, and your method of political stability doesn't happen on that side. For as long as the EU chooses one side over the other, we oppose.
Thanks for all this debate. Watching that, everyone on the side.